Councilors, please take your seats. I'd like to call to order the December 6, 2018 meeting of the Barnstable Town Council. Please note that tonight's meeting is recorded and broadcast on Channel 18, and that in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20, I must inquire whether anyone is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. Seeing none, please silence your devices. Madam Clerk, may we have the roll call?
Councilors Biedenbender.
Here.
Crocker James. Cullum.
Here.
Dagwan. Flores.
Here.
Rapp Grassetti.
Present.
Hebert.
Present.
Levesque.
Present.
Neary.
Here.
Schnepp.
Here.
Steinhilber.
Here.
Tinsley. Here. Wallace.
Here.
That would be 11.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, now's the time for public comment. So if anyone from the public wishes to speak, please come forward, sign in, state your name, and please limit your time to 3 minutes.
Are we going to get any, we're kind of all confused about what this is all about and where the map is and everything. Are you going to do an introduction?
If you're here to speak on the zoning items that are on the agenda later, there'll be a
Yes.
public hearing for those.
Oh, okay, so don't talk
Yeah,
now.
the continuation of the
Okay.
hearing from the last meeting. Anyone else wish to speak on a non-agenda item? All right, we'll keep moving on. Town Manager Communications with Mark Ellis. Welcome, Mark.
Good evening. Mark Ells, Town Manager. This is my report for November 16th through December 6th. We are proceeding with the tasks in the budget action calendar for FY 2020 as scheduled. We held our CIP staff review workshop today as scheduled. Later this evening, you will be considering 2 agenda items relevant to the allocation of tax levy. So we're staying right on track with that, and we'll keep you advised as we progress with developing the FY 2020 budget. We anticipate a progress meeting with Fish and Wildlife next week to discuss the future potential to site water supply wells at the 250-acre parcel owned by the Commonwealth that directly abuts the Hyannis public water supply. We've been anticipating that, and so we're hoping that we come out of there with a little clearer direction as to how we might proceed to the next steps in investigating whether we will be looking to site additional water supply wells at that location. On November 27th, I attended the Board of Health meeting to further discuss the proposal to eliminate or modify the interim saltwater estuaries regulation. The hearing was continued to January 27th at 3 p.m. We hope all will attend, and I'll keep you advised as we progress on that matter. The Planning and Development Department launched the Barnstable Zoning Portal, an online tool that translates zoning law into a user-friendly guide to understand how these land use regulations apply to business and property. Users can enter a term describing enter a term describing their business, and then get access to an interactive zoning map showing areas where the use is allowed by zoning. The goal of the tool is to make zoning regulations more accessible to the public and provide potential applicants a starting point for conversation with the town planning staff. Barnstable is participating in this one-year pilot program in partnership with the Cape Cod Commission and the firm Open Counters. A link to the zoning portal can be found on the Planning and Development webpage. The Planning and Development Department also invites you to the first Community by Design workshop on Monday, December 10th at 5:30 p.m. here at Town Hall. Community by Design is a joint planning initiative with Planning and Development Department, Cape Cod Commission, and consultant Union Studios to develop compact model housing design that are appropriate for the distinct characteristics of a neighborhood while also serving the needs of the community. The study area for this project is the east end of Hyannis. The December 10th workshop will engage the community to define local preferences for building forms, scale, height, style, density. These preferences will then be translated into prototypes and guide development of local implementation tools that allow for a mix of housing types that blend into and reflect the existing community's character. The Town of Barnstable and the Cape Cod Commission are exploring a joint application for U.S. Department of Transportation build grants for improvements of the two-lane portion of Yarmouth Road corridor between Route 28 and Route 6. If you remember, we applied for a Tiger grant previously, and we were not awarded that. This project is an implementation of the Hyannis Access Study, a long-range plan to improve access to and within Hyannis. The reconstruction of Yarmouth Road includes converting the roadway into a 4-lane boulevard and the addition of bicycle pedestrian paths connecting the Cape Cod Rail Trail to the transit hub. Applications are expected to be available this spring. Attached is a draft street performers application and guideline with the associated maps defining locations in Hyannis where special events involving street performers shall be considered and permitted. Staff has reviewed these guidelines internally and with the Business Improvement District and the Greater Hyannis Chamber of Commerce, and we're awaiting comment back from the Greater Hyannis Civic Association and are now sharing this with the Town Council. Be many discussions on this as we progress, but we're at the point now where I thought I should give you a copy of it and take a look, and we'll proceed with discussions from there. Finally, tomorrow is the Town of Barnstable Years of Service Awards. We recognize staff and retirees for their public service. We do it annually here in Town Hall in the Town Council's hearing room. This will commence tomorrow at 10:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for the town manager? Councilor Cullen?
Yes, number 5, the planning and development in the community by design idea, the workshop that you have. What are the parameters of that? What is the East End considered in the planning and development department, and how are we inviting people that probably live there already? Are we going by parcel or owner or renter?
Is Elizabeth Jenkins standing behind me anywhere? Elizabeth Jenkins.
You're in luck.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Elizabeth Jenkins, Director of Planning and Development. So this is a project that we actually are participating with the Cape Cod Commission. If you've been following this process at all, it's a project that they've already done in Falmouth, Orleans, and Eastham. But we saw a great opportunity to participate and look at potential for infill development options in Hyannis. So we defined the kind of what we're generally calling the east end of Hyannis within the downtown growth incentive zone as the study area. So, you know, there was a necessity to define a specific geographic area. So we're looking really at the neighborhoods north and south of Main Street and to the west of Center Street, to the other side of, towards the Yarmouth side of the transportation center as our general study area. So again, that being an area that has a wide variety of existing mix of forms, I think probably that the concepts that come out of here could probably be applicable more widely in Hyannis, but this is a great starting place because it does have that diversity of existing housing types. So in terms of outreach, we haven't done a direct mailing to residents there, but we've outreached to the Civic Association. We had a really good residents list because we've been working with the Department of Public Works on a streetscape improvement program there, so we were able to reach out to people who had participated in that and who were interested. Again, the idea being to see if we can define some existing or some proposed models of infill development that reflect what's existing in there, and then look at potential follow-on regulatory changes to make it easier to permit those types of housing in this area.
May I have a follow-up, please? And just one question about property that we already know is under agreement there. How is the Rob Brennan project moving forward on the Pleasant Street area there?
So I can't speak for Mr. Brennan, obviously from the town's perspective. That's a fully permitted project. My understanding is that he's currently working on utility disconnection. I know that the Hyannis Fire Department has a priority to at least make sure those existing buildings are secured and safe. So I think he's working as expeditiously as possible and in cooperation with them, again, to help either secure those buildings or get them down appropriately. My understanding is that he's very close to closing on financing for that project, which would allow it to move forward in the spring.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Councilor Schnapp?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mark? Thank you for your report. I wanted to ask a question relative to the Board of Health hearings. There were a number of participants in the hearing that were referencing our comprehensive wastewater management plan, and I know the town has made a lot of progress in terms of what we're doing to address these issues, but I didn't know if there was any obligatory date or that we need to submit anything under the Chapter 208 that's a more formal plan than the draft plan that was presented to the council last year.
Not to my knowledge. What we can do is come in, I'll request an opportunity through the leadership to come in and provide you an update on the comprehensive water management planning effort that we have ongoing. I think that given the many issues that are associated with moving forward with looking at both our water resources and how we're going to manage wastewater related issues, it's an appropriate time to have that discussion. I also think we need to focus on the parameters that are identified in the 208 and in the current work done by RAC, because my most recent conversations with the community have broadened that discussion significantly. It isn't just about nitrogen loading. It's about water resource management. And so I think before we go to final steps on our comprehensive water management plan as currently framed, we need to have a serious conversation about emerging contaminants and other issues such as housing, where we would like to see it, and the infrastructure that would need to support it, economic development, if we want to have a comprehensive plan. And most of the questions I've been asking are focused specifically on better understanding that balance before we try to move forward in the community with this significant effort. So we're ready.
That's great, and I welcome that conversation.
Yes.
So, just not a follow-up, but a question on the street performers. Is there an intent to actually charge a fee to street performers?
Not at this point, no.
Just to organize it a little bit more?
It already occurs. We want to organize it in a way that it's done appropriately, that it's done acceptable to the businesses and the residents. Certainly, it's primarily Hyannis and Main Street. We want to make sure that we do it in a way that's mindful of of those who live there and work there and visit there. And this will help us to do that, I think.
Any other councilors? Councilor Bienbender?
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is related to planning and thinking of where we're going over the next, 10, 20 years, and how the comprehensive wastewater management plan comes into play, and thinking about all of these zoning conversations we're having, so on and so forth. One of the things I was wondering about was, where are we at with our local comprehensive plan? Is there any intent has there been any discussion, amongst your staff about revisiting that? I mean, it's
Yes.
a good 10-plus years at this point.
Yes, absolutely, especially where the regional policy plan is under review and modification. So I would envision, and I know that Director Jenkins is planning for what we will be doing with the local comprehensive plan. So I will discuss with her, bringing forward kind of an overview of how we see us going forward in the next 12 months.
Great, thank you.
It's very important to, one of the things as town manager that you get to do is look at all these different planning efforts that we've done. And there's a tremendous amount of attention on the comprehensive water management plan. But we also have our strategic plan, we have our local comprehensive plan, and then we have many other comprehensive planning efforts related to specific areas, whether it be housing or dredging and when we're looking long-term, we need to be looking at all of these together. And the guiding document for us in preparation of budgets is your strategic plan. So we need to make sure that the local comprehensive plan and your strategic plan, and then these major comprehensive efforts, which the comprehensive water management plan is one, are all in sync with each other. And I think that's a significant effort that we need to make sure is in place. And everybody only focuses on that one, and that was kind of the origin of many of my questions relating to this interim estuaries regulation. Which one are we focusing on? Because quite honestly, the guiding document for us is the strategic plan that the town council establishes for the budget. So, yep.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Councilor Rappacetti, could we please act on the minutes of November 15th, please?
Yes, Mr. President. I'd like to move the town council meeting minutes of November 15th, 2018 for adoption.
Second.
Have a second. All those in favor of approving the town council meeting minutes of November 15th, 2018? That is unanimous. Thank you. Council communications. Anyone have any announcements? Councilor Cullum?
Yes, I just wanted to announce that the Cape Cod Foundation has given $150,000 to the Y Achievers program for over the next 2 years, which is really exciting. The Y Achievers program is a program that focuses on kids ages 12 to 18 that maybe don't have the leg up that they need to be able to get into college, don't have the focus at home, don't have the parents that can help them navigate the system. It helps with careers, and it's a program that was started I think it's 2 years ago now. We're at our second, maybe we're at our third year. We have good representation on that panel, and Pat Clark from Barnstable High School, also Jeannie Chalice, Lieutenant Jeannie Chalice is there. And it's a program that I'm really, really proud to have been one of the people to get started in Barnstable. I think it's a very, very successful program. I'm very thankful to the Cape Cod Foundation, and I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that that was funded for 2 years at $150 grand. Thank you.
Councilor Rappacetti?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to announce that the Katuitt dredge has commenced. And if you're interested in seeing an aerial view by drone, there is a YouTube video. If you just put in on YouTube Katuitt dredge, you can see a pretty extensive drone footage of the process. So it's very interesting. Excited about that.
Councilor Schnapp?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to let our audience know that through the town's inclusionary zoning, there are now 23 units of affordable housing available for 55 and over households. This is in the Everly development that's in Industrial Park. Right now, it's important to know that there are applications available. It's going to be a lottery for those who qualify to be pulled for these 23 units. And the deadline for those applications is January 4th, at 2 o'clock in the coming 2019. Applications are available at the Sturgis Library and the Hyannis Public Library. And also there's a website, www.s-e-b.com/lottery. So I don't know if we have that on our town website. Okay, it's also on the Town of Barnstable website.
Councilor Tinsley?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This isn't specific to the town of Barnstable, but something we'll be keeping an eye on due to prior discussions. Many of you, or most of you, probably know that the first 2 retail marijuana shops opened in Massachusetts recently. And it came out in the first 2 weeks. They did $4.8 million in business in the first, and it's not even a first 2 weeks. The first week was 5 days. And as each town taxes at 3% specifically, that's $144,000 those 2 towns have earned in 2 weeks. If you extrapolate that out, that's $3.7 million in the first year. So let's roll it back a little. Business might slow down. So let's say $3 million. That's $1.5 million per town in the first year. So hopefully we're all keeping an eye on that. I think that's a good thing, so we can look at our regulations down the road. Thank you.
Councilor Wallace?
On behalf of our Town Council Vice President, James Crocker, who is not with us tonight, I'd like to make the announcement that the Osterville Christmas Stroll is tomorrow, and it starts as early as 10 a.m. and at the Historical Museum, and it goes until 10 p.m. with music, live music at Wimpy's. And there's different events throughout the course of the day. And if anyone's interested, I'll be pouring some of my wines at the J. McLaughlin store from 3 to 6. So I hope to see you all there.
Shameless self-promotion,
Yeah.
Phil, shameless.
Well, some of us have different motivations than others. Thank you.
Now we know why you volunteered to make that announcement. Anyone else? Councilor Hebert?
Thank you, Mr. President. A number of things. I was happy to attend the advisory dinner at the Cape Cod Tech. Students from the Culinary Institute, for the Culinary Arts Program, did the serving and the cooking and did a terrific job. They served at least 150, 200 people. But my message to all of us is that we can be very, very proud of the work that's being done at the Cape Cod Tech to prepare our students for future careers. It was just a magnificent event. And people from all the different fields attended it, the advisors to the different programs. It was just outstanding, terrific. The other thing is to remind my fellow councilors that the Selectmen Councilors Association is going to have their December meeting is going to be next Friday, December 14th at 7:30 a.m. at the Daniel Webster Inn in Sandwich. It starts at 7:30. And our guest speaker is going to be Jamie Benieda. He is a special investigator from the Massachusetts Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission, and he's going to be talking about the other addiction, alcohol, obviously. And he'll be presenting Cape and Islands data on incidents and local strategies to stem the effects of abuse and addiction. So just a friendly reminder, and this is one of our best attended events. It's at the Daniel Webster. The breakfast is always outstanding, and all councilors are invited to be there. And there's no cost, obviously. That's paid for by our funds. And then lastly, I had the great honor and the joy to be at the lighting of the menorah at the Cape Cod Mall. That was attended by fellow councilors Matt Levesque and also Deborah Dagwan. All 3 of us got to speak. It was a spiritual, for me personally, it was a spiritual and a community high to be with folks that have nearly 4,000 years of tradition, and I was honored to be with my fellow councilors there for that celebration. It was just absolutely awesome. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, Councilor Dagwan?
Thank you, Mr. Hebert. I was going to mention that also. And I also wanted to mention that everyone there was, we were the shortest people. So it ended up being Matt being the tallest out of the whole group. It's who they picked. They had to get him to like the manure. So it was like, so I thought that was interesting. The guy said, well, okay. I'm like, council, well, let's pick the tallest good person. and they picked Matt to come up and light, so I thought that was kind of, I just wanted to share that. But anyway, and him and Paul did a great greeting from the town to the group for this religious holiday. I also want to say congratulations to the Hyannis Civic Association for a successful Christmas stroll last week, and also for the participants who participated in the boat parade. Most of the people have taken their boats out of the water this time of year, and we had 15 boats that came out and were decorated, so we had 15 boats that we could judge. So I was on the boat with Santa, and Santa and his elf, and we had some really, had a nice crowd out. So kudos to them for another successful year.
Thank you. Councilor Tinsley, yep.
Thank you
Quick,
for
that's
your
enough.
indulgence here. It was just, a follow-up with Councilor Hebert's talk. Jamie Benyenda, any of you who have a chance to go, I've actually known Jamie for a long time. He was at my daughter's wedding a few weeks ago. And if there's any way you can move your schedule to hear him talk, it would be well worth it. So if you can, take a look at your schedule, because he's going to give you a great talk and some excellent information. So just a follow-up with Councilor Hebert. Thank you.
Councilor Flores?
Yes, two things. Now that Councilor Tinsley brought that up, I would second that. I've known Benyenda for a couple of years, and he worked also very diligently within the education community. He's a great speaker, and you'll learn a lot about facts and figures relative to the addiction of alcohol, not only on the Cape and Islands, but usually pretty much across the Commonwealth. It will be a good taking. What I really wanted to say, though, was I wanted to thank the Barnstable Village Association for sponsoring last night's Barnstable Village Christmas stroll. Well over probably a couple of thousand folks. It was a great time. Lots of free food. Santa Claus came from Hyannis and made his stop also in the village, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful time. So hats off to the Village Association that plans all of these activities.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? All right. We will move into the orders of the day. Councilor Schnepp, could you please read item 2019-032 and open the public hearing, please?
Yes. Old business joint public hearing with the planning board, item 2019-032, amending Article 5, Chapter 240, Section 25 of the zoning ordinance to revise regulations for the highway business district.
I have a second. Councilor Vett, could you please read item 2019-042 and open the public hearing? Page 11.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is old business, joint public hearing with the planning board. It's a roll call vote. As item number 2019-042, amending Chapter 240, Article 3 of the zoning ordinances to expand the highway business district, as written.
I have a second. I'd like to welcome our planning board. It's good to see you after a few weeks here.
Great, thank you.
If you want to open up your meeting.
Sure. I'll be opening up the planning board meeting for December 6th, and I'd first like to introduce the board that's here.
Good evening, and thank you, Councilors. Jeff Swartz.
Good evening, Stephen Hellman.
Good evening, Stephen Costello.
And my name is Mary Barry as chair. I'd like to reopen the public hearing that we have for two items, which is 2019-032, amending Article 5, Chapter 240, Section 25 of the zoning ordinance to revise regulations for the highway business district. This is a joint public hearing with town council, and item 2019-042, which is amending Chapter 240 of the zoning ordinance zone map to expand the highway business district, joint public hearing with town council. I'll ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second? All in favor? And the public hearing's open. Thank you.
Great. So we've reopened the public hearing. Before we get started, just to inform the discussion there and planning board's deliberations. We did receive a request today on item 2019-042 from the owner of two parcels, James Crocker, to remove a parcel on Falmouth Road and remove a parcel on Finney's Lane from this item. And at the appropriate time, amendments will come forward for the council to determine, if they're going to pass that amendment or not. So just wanted to make that announcement. I think I'm going to have Elizabeth Jenkins come up. I know we had a presentation at the last meeting. Obviously had a public hearing as well. But I wanted Elizabeth to give a quick recap of these two items, and then we'll get into the public hearing.
Thank you, President Steinhobler. Elizabeth Jenkins, again, Director of Planning and Development. I get just a very brief recap on the two items that you have before you tonight. One being an amendment to the text of the current zoning ordinance applicable to areas located in both Hyannis and Centerville that are now zoned highway business. So the current highway business district, again, applicable to the areas in the map here up on the screen that are shown in yellow. These areas currently only permit 2 commercial land uses as of right. Those are offices and banks without drive-throughs. So the item 032 brings forward a comprehensive rewrite to that district to permit a variety of commercial land uses as of right, as well as a number of conditional uses. It amends the bulk and dimensional regulations for the districts, making changes to minimum lot areas and setbacks, and finally originates some site design and performance standards that would be applicable to new development in the district. So this is, again, is the first item, which are changes to the current HB zones. The second item being a proposed amendment to the zoning map to expand the applicability of the highway business district. So there are sort of 4 distinct areas in which the HB district is proposed for expansion. One being in Centerville, that area to the west of Old Stage Road, between Old Stage and the Masonic Lodge. The second being an elimination of the current highway office district, again, a similarly restrictive district to the HB. Again, elimination of that district in favor of the highway business district. The third one being at the intersection of Route 28 and West Main Street in kind of the Centerville Hyannis area, to include a number of parcels around that corridor and to make that district contiguous in that area. As you can see, it's kind of a patchwork. And then further south to expand that district boundary to incorporate a few additional parcels to the east, to the west of the terminus of the current HB along Strawberry Hill Road. And then finally, the final proposed expansion is around the West End Rotary in Hyannis. This would square off parcel boundaries and extend the district to incorporate the entire parcel that is currently home to the Melody Tent, as well as add 2 additional parcels to Scudder Lane.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
You're welcome.
All right, so we'll get into the public hearing. This is a continuation of the public hearing we had at the last meeting, so we'd like to see new speakers to speak on these items. So if anyone would wish to speak, please come forward.
Tina Carey from Centerville and Hyannis. I'm not quite sure why we're changing these things, because people
Pull it down.
Is this new? Okay.
Pull it down.
This isn't new, this is the.
Oh, there it is, okay. Right now, Lambert's Fruit is not in a business zone, is that correct? But they went and they got a variance so that they could operate there? Is that what happened? And now you're gonna change the zoning so it is a business zone? Can anybody answer me?
You can finish your comments. I'll have it
Okay.
clarified. Go ahead.
I'm not sure why we're changing anything, because if people want to put businesses, which they have put, on Route 28, they come before zoning and they get variances to do it. I don't know. I mean, I live on Route 28, and I certainly wouldn't want to see, 50 apartment units built next to me. I like the fact that I'm zoned residential, even though I'm in a very commercial area. I mean, it's like a protection for us to have it zoned residential, and if somebody wants to do something, the neighbors are notified, you go before zoning, and, they make the adjustments. I mean, Lambert's Fruit is a business, that's there, it's been there forever, but it's surrounded by a lot of residential areas, and the people that live there are happy with it. I don't know why we have to change residential to commercial. It's just gonna open up Pandora's box, and God knows what we're gonna have as neighbors. I mean, we could have an auto repair shop next to us. I just don't see the purpose of doing it unless there's some other reason why you're doing it. I haven't gotten a good answer. And what about Old Stage Road? I didn't see that map because the maps that we have are very tiny. You can't read them. What is happening at Old Stage Road? They're gonna turn residential that's west of Old Stage into commercial? Is that what's going on? I don't know. All I know is that there's
Finish up your comments, I'll have it clarified.
yeah, there's a lot of residential properties on Route 28, and the traffic on Route 28 is just gridlock. I mean, trying to get out of my house in the morning with all the school buses, of course, everybody drives their kids to school now because nobody rides the bus because they don't want to pay the bus fee. So it's like traffic jams galore at first thing in the morning. And people keep saying they don't want sprawl, but no one ever says anything about congestion. We're so congested here, we can't move, and there's no way you can widen the roads here. I already talked to people when they had the growth management department. I said, well, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna widen all the roads here so we can get around? And she said, no, it's not possible to widen the roads. You have to go, I mean, my road in front of my house is a 2-lane, and then it goes to a 4-lane, and then it goes back to a 2-lane. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I don't know why you'd want more congestion in an area that's already overly congested. And I was just talking to this lady behind me. Her property used to be where West Main Street is, and they took it by eminent domain so that Strawberry Hill Road could go to Route 28, but that used to be, her parcel went from both sides of the street, and she lost that to have a road be made, and she has 3 lovely houses there. She's probably going to get up and speak. I shouldn't speak for her, but we live in a congested area, but we're still little neighborhoods. Our neighbors are still houses that are next door to us, and we kind of like that. I mean, the Greek church is there, CVS is there, that new thing that they built with Cape Cod Healthcare, but everything on the other side of the street is residential. And, everybody seems quite happy with that. So anyway, I'll let someone else get up and speak. Thank you.
Elizabeth, do you want to just quickly clarify, because there are a lot of uses, highway business has been around for a long time. And there's a lot of uses in highway business that are not banks or offices. So if you want to just quickly clarify the process, how those businesses come to be.
Sure, so a couple of clarifications in response to those comments. It is somewhat misleading to say that the only commercial uses permitted in the HB are offices and banks. Those are the only 2 commercial uses permitted as of right. In the highway business district, all commercial uses that are permitted in the B district, the business district, are permitted with a conditional use special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals in the HB district. So there is an avenue for the permission currently for a wide range of commercial land uses in the HB, which is why you see a number of those there. I will also note that the HB is marked by even within the kind of existing commercial zoning scheme, a lot of pre-existing non-conforming uses. Going way back to the 60s, it originated as a more kind of permissive zoning district, and then as traffic congestion started to arise, there were amendments made over time to restrict those land uses. So that's why you do see a wide variety of uses there, but again, mostly either pre-existing non-conforming or permitted by conditional use special permit by the Zoning Board of Appeals. A second quick point of clarification regarding use variances. Barnstable is somewhat unique in Massachusetts in that we do entertain use variances or variances to the principal permitted uses in a district. There are exceptions to that, however, notably in this case, within 300 feet of Route 28 and West Main Street, property owners are not eligible to seek use variances.
Thank you for that. And just a reminder that the public hearing's not a Q&A session. It's an opportunity for you to have your comments. We take it as input, and we'll take it as part of our deliberation. But I just want to make a quick exception because there's some people that were not here at the last meeting when we went through all this in greater detail. Anyone else wish to speak?
Hi, my name is Eileen Hannon. I live on Richardson Road and Gina Court in Centerville. When I moved there 30-some-odd years ago, there was no bell tower mall, there was no center office building. We were told by the real estate agent that that land would never be developed, that the man who owned it had given it to a college, but to be kept as preservation land. Well, within a few years, center office building went up, bell tower mall went up. Also, when bell tower mall went up, the entrance from Casual Gourmet to the bell tower mall was supposed to be only as a fire exit. It was not supposed to be a drive-through like it is today. Richardson Road is a narrow country road. We get 18-wheelers, we get speeding cars. I mean, the traffic right now is ridiculous. People cut off at 28, go Great Marsh Road out to Old Stage Road. It's a shortcut. Last week, there must have been an accident on 28, so the traffic never stopped. My concern is the area of Bell Tower Mall, Harbor Place, the nursing home there, and the Casual Gourmet. Is that the area that they want to build up more than what it is? And if it is, I think they should take a second look at it. Spend a day sitting on Richardson Road and count the number of cars, count the number of 18-wheelers, which should never be allowed on that road, but they take the shortcut and go back into Bell Tower Mall through Casual Gourmet, which was never supposed to be allowed. So I wish somebody would take a look at it. And also, when Bell Tower Mall was built, they were told that there should be no dumpsters being unloaded until 8 o'clock in the morning. Be there at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and you hear them. So that was never enforced. And I know when Lorraine was alive, she lived down the end of Gina Court, she kept calling and calling and calling the town hall, and nothing was ever done about it. So I don't want things to get out of hand now, again, as is, you know, unless somebody wants to buy my house, I'd be more than happy to move, but until then, it should not be the busy road that it is. 18-wheelers shouldn't be allowed. There should be speed bumps on the road. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yeah, I'd like to stick with the new speakers because we've heard from everybody who was here last time. So if there's anyone else new to speak? Z, you spoke last time.
I spoke generally. I didn't speak
spoke
specifically
to
about
this.
this. I spoke about the wastewater issue. Am I allowed to speak, Eric?
You spoke last time. I'm looking for new speakers.
I didn't address this specifically. You sure you're not going to allow me to speak on this, Eric?
I want to see if there's any new speakers. I know you like the microphone. I'm looking for new speakers. Any other new speakers? Go ahead.
I was unable to be here last time due to a prior commitment, and I am looking at this map here.
You just got to state your name, please.
Pardon me?
Just state your name, please.
Oh, Mary McHale. What does this mean?
That's why you have the larger maps
I
up.
see RD1 over Wequacket Lake. Now, and it says proposed amendment to the Centerville zoning map. How does that affect this whole area here?
We're not discussing any zoning around Wequacket Lake.
What are we discussing right now?
Commercial corridors, Route 28, West Main Street, 132, highway business. which is on the maps up here, not anything around Waquacket Lake.
You're not going to be discussing this at all this evening?
No, we're not discussing anything around Waquacket Lake.
Oh, well, when I came in, I asked if there were maps pertaining to this evening's discussion, and this is what was handed to me. Because usually when I go to a meeting, they'll have big placards that you can preview before the meeting begins, and so you have an overview of what is being discussed. So now I'm getting the map. Okay. Well, I just want to say I am very concerned about the nature of the development that would be proposed for these areas. I'm very unclear about that. Because right now it seems to be the kind of development I am witnessing is professional offices that have gone up on Route 28, off of Strawberry Hill, Wequacket Lane, Strawberry Hill. So with these changes, what would we be, and this is the old Knights of Columbus property here. Is this what I see further down here? What would these zoning changes allow?
It's all in the agenda, and I believe there's copies over on the counter over there. It's all listed in there. It was posted probably a month ago, so you can read through it there.
So if I go over there now, I can get a list of,
Yep, it's right behind the chair of the planning board. We'll hand you one right now.
because I'm just trying to absorb everything
Yep,
and
it's
understand.
all in there. It's
Because
online
a lot
as
of this
well.
I don't understand.
Yep, it's
Okay.
online as well.
So if I, well, I'll look at this further and I might have some more questions.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Like, see, no, we're not, you already spoke. Any other new speakers first? Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Liz Riley, and
Just gotta take a second and then speak into the microphone and state your name, please.
I'm Liz Riley. I live Richardson Road and Gina Court, and it looks like it's going back toward that way somewhere. I looked at something. I have no idea what this is about or what exactly is being built, and are they going to be, are we going to have 10-foot buildings, or are we going to have 6-foot buildings now? I mean, not 6 foot, 6-story, 10-story, is that what we're looking at? Are we looking at auto repair? Are we looking at, what? We have no idea. We got a card to come to this this meeting was, happening, so we figured we should come. We didn't know we missed everything prior, so we don't know the questions to ask, because we don't know if we're involved and how much we are involved. And I think we live in a village, we used to, and it's becoming I&O Road. If I wanted to live in I&O Road, I'd move over there, but I don't want to live there. I want to live basically in a village. Has become a very crowded village, yes, but it's taken the whole, quaintness out of Centerville. It's become a highway. I don't see where they're not going to make a 4-way highway out of it. It's, or 6 or 8 or what, because it's getting ridiculous. And it is true, we've watched 18-wheelers come down Richardson Road. Usually they're not 18, but there are some 18s that come down there, believe it or not. And if anybody's ever been on it, it's a windy, narrow road with a lot of potholes. I mean, they do fill them, and 2 weeks later they're back because of all the traffic. Or what they use, I have no idea. But anyway, it's becoming horrendous to live there, as it is. The garbage from the shops, people, Dunkin' Donuts, all of that. We already get it all thrown all over the lawns, all over the roads. We try to clean it up, but it comes back because, people don't care. So let's get some more businesses. Let's make it, let's make it an urban cement village, okay? let's just make it a sprawling parking lot. I think there was a song about that back in the 60s. But anyway, I really am totally against connecting businesses, more shops. We have empty stores. Why don't somebody go into one of the empty buildings? We have empty stores, empty buildings. How long has that pavilion thing been there, or whatever it is, that used to be a nursing home? How long has that been sitting there, rotting? You know, all right, somebody buy that, put something there, nice. It doesn't have to be 6 stories, 8 stories. I mean, as it is, I go into Hyannis now, and I'm looking up, and where's the sun? They are going up. Are we gonna start going up? If people don't like villages and don't like the way it is and needs all the stores and all the shops and everything else and all the garbage and all the 18-wheelers, do me a favor, move off of Cape Cod.
Thank you. Any other new speakers first?
Good evening. My name is Jim Bancroft. I've been a lifelong resident of Barnstable. I'm trying to open a barbershop at 1698 Falmouth Road. I've been to the Board of Health twice, and I have another meeting with them on December 18th. Got a letter from the Board of Health saying go ahead, and they said I'm in the estuary overlay, so I had to go through that. And now once I get this permit or from the Board of Health, which is probably going to happen, then I'll have to go through the Zoning Board of Appeals. I started this process back in July. I'm going into a vacant building, vacant property. There used to be a jewelry store, but according to the zoning, I can't go in as a barber shop without getting the zoning board approval, which to me, it's really frustrating to take so long to get a simple business as a barbershop. I'm talking an iconic barbershop, Bancroft Brothers Barbershop, which is going to stand for many, many years if I finally get it open. Because I have 5 sons that are all involved. And I'm just hoping that Barnstable can look at a simple process of letting businesses carry on in the simple replacing a business with a business is what we're trying to accomplish in Centerville. So thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Any other new speakers? All right, so you go ahead. We'll start with people that have spoke last time.
Thank you, Eric. Zenas Crocker. Thank you, town councilors. So I have a different tack than I spoke about last time. We were talking about wastewater and the pipe coming down 28. But having grown up here, I guess I'm concerned about the look and feel of what I view as 1970s strip mall potential development versus, let's say, something down the street in Mashpee Commons. And I find that tremendously concerning, and I've heard from certain councilors who said we're losing business to Yarmouth. And I say, do we want to look like Route 28 in Yarmouth? Seriously? I'm really shocked by that, and I'm shocked by this. And Elizabeth used the word patchwork, and I think that that is what strikes me as what's so evident about this particular plan. It's patchwork. And what I'd like to encourage that Town Manager Els referred to earlier is a comprehensive plan. I'm glad there's a strategic plan by Town Council. I think we need a comprehensive zoning and development plan. The last one, I think, was in 2010, which was probably developed some years before that, which probably didn't take into account things like workforce housing, which I view as so critical, and we all do, low-income housing, which is also so critical. But I'm sorry, I don't see the expansion of these districts as delivering that kind of result for this town. In fact, I'm very, very concerned, because I read studies that some of what we seem to be looking for, which is an increase in tax revenue based on valuation, and yet for many commercial districts, they say for each additional tax dollar, it actually costs the town $1.25 over time. So with additional services layered onto these districts, are we really generating real income for the town and for longevity for this community by taking on this kind of patchwork development as a larger plan? Maybe we can look at areas like Independence Park, which we talked about last week for the Cape Cod Commission. I was looking online and noticing, and I have no idea whether it's available, but the Cape Cod Community College has 95 acres. It happens to go by an existing sewer. What a great place to have dormitories as well as workforce housing with some density. So looking at the Route 28 corridor, I get very concerned about this, and at the previously mentioned Department of Health extension regulation, let's call it that. And I'm concerned because I think it's tremendously important for this council to look at the comprehensive waste plan. And in fact, I think we have a framework for that plan already, and I think it needs to be an adaptive plan, which hopefully will bring the pipe down 28. But this whole process really brought to the fore for me how carefully we have to do that. So just bringing the pipe down 28, which I think is critical for all villages in the town of Barnstable, but we need to really think on a comprehensive basis about how we do that, what it means for the development, and as many people have spoken, traffic is already unbelievable, and so I think we need to be very concerned about that, very conscious of it, and thoughtful when we look at how we're exactly going to deal with this development. You know, that's what I have in general. I think the specifics of some of the recommendations, such as an earlier mention, the previous meeting about 25% potential for corrugated steel, it just doesn't make sense for me in this area. We all are from around here. We look at a village like Centerville, which is probably everything that we all think of for Cape Cod in the way it looks and feels. And, you know, I get concerned when I think about rounding the corner and looking at more a strip mall type development rather than the character and the feel and the sense of place that that we all have for the town of Barnstable. Thank you very much. Thanks for letting me speak, Eric.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Susan Sweet, and I spoke last time, but when I came last time, I didn't really know a lot, and I learned a lot last time. So I just like to, I was concerned because you had mentioned my property for development, and that upset me so much because it is never for development. But some people were wondering what it means, and I live next to Lambert's, and if you put these businesses next to residentials, I don't live right next to him, but I get woken up by the dumpster pickup at very early in the morning. All day long, there's traffic and horns and screeching brakes from people pulling out onto West Main because there just isn't, the traffic is so bad at times you just can't make a left-hand turn. You have to go, I go right when I want to make a left out of my driveway. So the noise is bad, the smells from restaurant food cooking. This is what, if you put it in a residential, and that's what a lot of these areas are. They are heavy residential areas, and that's what you'd be subjecting people to. Now, I'm all for repurposing buildings. The guy who wants his barbershop, I'd love to see him get his barbershop, because I think we need to repurpose what's already there, not tear down our land and our trees and houses to put in another business when we have lots of empty businesses out there. And so I think we need to look at that. And the traffic, like she said, on West Main Street, it can't handle it. It backs up now. And I noticed it on 28. How could there be an exit on 28 at that corner where the lights are for more development? I'd safety it where that house is on the corner. I just can't see that we could put that a business could safely go on that corner. Strawberry Hill goes down. 28 has 3 lanes with designated turning. I think safety, it's just, I'm speaking more on my area, but I noticed that looking at the others, those issues as far as putting into a residential area, businesses such as those 26 Some of them really generate a lot of noise, a lot of traffic. Now, some of them would be very appropriate in a residential area, like an art gallery or something, but not that big, long list. And I think that's my biggest thing is this is residential. Centerville is residential in that area, always has been. And I just like to clear up a point that she made. When my great-great-grandfather bought the property, there was no West Main Street. It went from Long Pond all the way to Route 28, the state highway. So West Main Street, that's why I have 4 properties. The West Main cut through the original piece of property. But yeah, I just like to say, please consider not in a residential area. Fine for business, a lot of those things, I'd love to see them loosen up the businesses where businesses already are, but not residential. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? You already spoke.
Good evening. I'm Susan Rohrback from Centerville. I'd like to thank Mark Els for his comments earlier for talking about getting all of our plans to agree and all of our plans in sync, because I think that's a really important thing for us to do. And I think this whole issue is a good example of why we need to do that. I respect the work that's been done on the uses, and I think Mr. Bancroft ought to be able to get his barbershop, and I don't think it should be so difficult for people who want to use a unit in Bell Tower Mall or the Centerville Plaza to be able to go in there and have a business. However, I think some of the uses proposed along West Main Street and 28 are more appropriate for 132, perhaps, than they are for that area. But my main issue is the maps. I think that the area west of Old Stage and 28, and now I'm understanding the Richardson Road area and the area on West Main Street are really not appropriate for more intense development and change of use from residential to commercial. I'm really not sure where that idea came from, because the highway business initially was intended to limit traffic in certain areas. That's the reason why we have a limited number of uses by right at this point. And especially the area west of Old Stage is simply not appropriate for additional entering and turning traffic. If you're trying to approach that intersection from the west in the summer, you know, you just couldn't get in and out of there. I think that we need to work on our wastewater plan. I look forward to hearing more about where we stand with that, and comprehensive plan before changing uses in areas like this, because we want to make sure that we get what we want where we want it. We want to make sure that our infrastructure plans match with our comprehensive plans, with our wastewater plans, with our zoning. It makes sense. And so I think we really want to make sure that we get what we want where we want it, so that, and where we can support it with infrastructure, and thinking about how much that infrastructure is going to cost and how it's all going to work. It's a lot of work to mesh that together, but it really needs to be done rather than adding in new business areas sort of piecemeal I'm not going to say without any thought, because I know a lot of thought went into the uses part of this. I'm not sure where the map changes came from. But it needs to be a deeper thought before you're changing the maps. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
This lady said I could have her 3 minutes.
No.
I think this is a violation of freedom
No,
of
you
speech.
spoke. You had an opportunity to speak.
really do.
You had no opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fred Chirigotis from Centerville. Got a lot of letters, so it's going to take me a while to write my name.
I know the feeling, Fred.
Yes, exactly.
in Centerville, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak again. I had a chance to speak last time we were here. In Centerville, what we think of as the business district, at least in Route 28, goes from Old Stage Road to Finney's Lane. Doesn't go beyond that. In addition to the business zone right on Route 28, we have the residential zones that abut them very closely, and you've heard from a number of speakers on how they're impacted. I think basically the most important thing we've heard tonight was from Elizabeth Jenkins, is that all of the uses that are allowed in the business zone are allowed in that zone by special permit. And you think, well, why not as of right? And the reason it's not as of right is simply because the infrastructure isn't there. Route 28, unfortunately, is 2 lanes in each direction in the area I'm talking about, Finney's Lane to Old Stage Road, which becomes a racetrack. The light turns green, and I don't think there's a speed limit from one set of lights to the other, and I'm not sure if cars are required to stop right when the light turns red, or if you get to be like 4 or 5 after it turns red. But if you watch traffic there, that's how it flows. It's a really dangerous area. Now, the impetus originally for the change in the zoning here, or the uses in the highway business, is because of the owners of the Centerville Plaza and the Bell Tower Mall. How can we better use the business properties that we already have? And I think for years, we've been going around and around with both the owners of both of those properties, and the difficulty is they can do the things they want to do, but it has to be by special permit, rather than, and I do think that the uses should be expanded, but I think the reason for a special permit is to take into consideration all of the problems that we're hearing about tonight. Traffic, primarily, but the congestion, water usage, wastewater. One of the speakers talked about the comprehensive water management plan. Well, how does this fit in with it? One of the things I've thought of is water usage itself. This is in the COMM water district. There's not a COMM representative here. How do we know how that's going to impact all of the water users in that area? What does these changes do to water usage? And what do we do about the wastewater which is going to be generated? There just simply isn't the capacity here. So I thought about, it's a joint meeting with the planning board, so planning. What is the plan? What is the study? What does it show us? Changes by expanding the area. I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't consider changes in the uses within the area that exists. But, of course, I happen to agree with a lot of people about, we need to scale that back a little bit. But I'm going to talk about expanding the area. And expanding the area, how does that change the traffic? On Route 28 from Old Stage Road west, on Route 28 is 1 lane in each direction. We know that it took 13 years to get a light at Lumbert Mill Road. How many fatalities? I bet people can count them here because how bad traffic is. Now we're talking about expanding the use of the road for commercial purposes without taking into consideration how do we mitigate that. It's a real major problem with congestion and traffic, and the traffic in the neighborhoods, as you've heard. When there's a problem, people are going through the neighborhoods. The reason Route 28 was originally expanded was to get the traffic out of the neighborhoods and have a corridor that traveled right through Centerville to the airport rotary. Of course, 25 or 30 years ago, that was fine, but now we're just overbuilt. The road just can't keep up with it. By the way, I want to thank Mr. Crocker. I think that was a very good move on his part to remove the 2 properties. I don't know if it's clear on these 2 maps, the 2 properties that he owns that are now, that he's made a motion to withdraw those properties from the map. Is that right?
There was a request.
Okay.
He's not making the motion.
Okay.
He's
Well,
just
he's not
making
here.
it as a
Yeah, he's
citizen
not-
owner.
Okay. So to get back to what I began with, the impetus originally was the owners of the two existing strip malls to be able to better use their properties, which makes sense. The problem is that we need to have controlled growth. We need to understand what that growth is. I think that's what the purpose of a regulatory agreement or a special permit is that you can come before the town and work with the town to take into consideration all of the impacts, the traffic, the water, the wastewater, you know, whatever is gonna be necessary, so that we can come to something that works. It's not gonna work perfectly for everybody, but it's gonna work better for everybody. So I would ask, number one, that you do not expand the highway business zone beyond where it is now. And, you know, one of the things that wasn't mentioned, although I heard a speaker say she lives right on Route 28, the properties to the south of West Main Street border on Long Pond. It's a pristine body of water. We need to take in, there are no storm drains. We're talking about water management, wastewater management, clean, you know, protecting our water. We need to take into consideration all of those things before we move forward with a plan to develop. So I would ask that we not expand the highway business district beyond what it is right now. And I think before you vote to adopt changes, you take into consideration the thoughts of all the people that we have here. And, you know, I really don't think contractor yards belong in this district. Let's be real. But anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? No, you already, you spoke? No. Everyone gets one chance.
I'm a little more enlightened.
Okay.
That's what I want.
Hi, I'm Felicia Penn from Hyannis, and I spoke at the last hearing. And I just wanted to say that since that time, I did summarize my comments, and I did submit them to the chair of the planning board for the board's purposes, so that they could discuss details. So if you, as chair of the president of the town council, would like
You
a
can
copy
hand
of
it
that,
to
I'm
the
happy
clerk.
to do that. Okay. I'm hoping that the planning board, jointly with the town council, will discuss each and every one of those items submitted, just so that they're aired in public, and so that the public can hear your reactions to them, reactions from staff, et cetera, so that you could have a constructive conversation on them as you revise the zoning as it's proposed, because it does need several revisions, in my humble opinion. And listening to the comments tonight, I'd also like someone to reconcile or clearly define for us how the proposed zoning and the map changes, and this has already been discussed a little bit tonight, provides, quote, appropriate protection for residential land uses. On the rationale in the beginning of this zoning, I believe that's one of the reasons. That was the purpose for this zoning, is to provide appropriate protections for residential land uses. We've heard numerous comments this evening that people are afraid that this doesn't do that. I happen to agree with them. As a matter of fact, it encroaches on many residential land uses, not just on this map, but particularly on map 3. So in my comments that I sent to the planning board, I proposed that the proposed extension of map 3 be deleted, or that map 3 be deleted in its entirety, the green area on there. That's a residential road. It's a rural road. Those are residential. Ms. Jenkins got up and said that part is the Melody tent, and that there's only 3 parcels. There's actually 4 parcels there, and 2 of them are houses. And one of those people spent the last 8 years pouring money into their house. It looks beautiful compared to when they bought it several years ago. And we're just coming about here willy-nilly and saying we want to make this highway business. It's residential. So if we're trying to protect residential land uses, I'd love somebody to explain to me how map 3 does that. I'm not sure, you know, a lot of people like to look at zoning maps and they see some here and some there and some there and some there, and they say it's patchwork. Let's join them all together so that it looks better, so we have a handle on what the zone is. But there's a reason the map was drawn that way in the beginning. And I suggest that when you look at old maps and when zones are created, that you also look at the text of the town meeting that created that map, or the town council meeting, or the planning board meeting that created that map. Because it's not just maps that tell the story, it's the text of how that was created and the purposes of them that tell the story. So I think that's really important if we're gonna go forward and create and expand zoning, that we really understand the foundation of what we're standing on. So my last comment is, please protect the adjacent residential uses, and please revise this to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? No, you already spoke. You already spoke. You already spoke. You already spoke. No, you already spoke. You already spoke. If you're gonna be disruptive, you can leave. Everyone gets a chance to speak. You got a chance to speak. So, everyone's had a chance to speak who wanted to speak? Okay. Is there any motions I'll start with the planning board. Do you wish to make any motions?
I move, Madam Chairperson, I move we close our public hearing.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, public hearing is closed.
On both items?
On both items, yes, thank you.
Could you read those items for the record?
Sure. We're closing the public hearing on the 2019-032, amending Article 5, Chapter 240, Section 25 of the zoning ordinance to revise regulations on the Highway Business District, which is the joint public hearing with Town Council, and 2019-042, which is amending Chapter 240 of the zoning ordinance zoning map to expand the Highway Business District, which is also a joint public hearing with Town Council.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing on item 2019-032? I have a second. All those in favor of closing the public hearing on 2019-032? Any opposed? One in opposition. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing on item 2019-042? I have a second. All those in favor of closing the public hearing on item 2019-042? All those opposed? 2 in opposition. All right. So the public hearings are closed on both items. Madam Chair, do you want to adjourn to the other room?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, we're going to move on with our business of the day. Let's see, Councilor Dagwan, could you please read item 2019-052 and open the public hearing? It's on page 13. And I believe we have our Finance Director, Mark Milne, with us.
Yes, Mr. President. Item 2019-055. That's correct. Acceptance of a fiscal year 2019 cultural district grant in the amount of $5,000 from the Massachusetts Cultural Council.
No, this is item 052 under old business.
52, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
Page 13.
2019-052, an allocation of tax levy fiscal year 2019 residential exemption. This is open for a public hearing and it needs a roll call vote.
I have a second. And we have Mark Milne with us. He gave us a presentation on this item at the last meeting, and we have a brief synopsis again here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, councilors. Mark Milne, Director of Finance. So this item, the first item before you this evening, is to vote whether or not to continue with a 20% residential exemption. As drafted on your agenda, a vote in favor of this item will continue that 20% residential exemption. This chart up on the screen illustrates the tax benefit to a primary homeowner who has a home in Barnstable, which is their primary residence. That benefit diminishes as the value of the property increases to the point where you get to $1,048,000 essentially, and there's no benefit to a primary homeowner at that point. However, it's still in their best financial interest from local tax paying, property tax perspective to continue to file for the residential exemption, because you'll save over $900 if you do so. So that's my summary on this item, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
And for the council's edification, can you clarify what a yes vote and a no vote does on this?
Yes, a yes vote will continue with the 20% residential exemption, which we've had in place since fiscal year 2006. So it's been 12 years. This will be the 13th year if you continue to do it.
Thank you, Mark. And this is a public hearing, so if anyone wishes to speak to this item, please come forward.
Hi, Tina Carey. That was one of my questions with the zoning changes. If something has changed to...
We're speaking on this item here.
Yes, that's what I'm going to talk about.
Get to it.
And would someone's tax rate change if they went from residential to a business zoning? That was the question I had.
All right, well, it sounds like you're talking about the zoning item.
No, I'm
that you already
talking
talked
about the taxes.
This is about whether or not you want to keep a residential exemption. That's what this item is.
Well, right now, the residential tax rate is $9.61 per thousand. The commercial rate is $8.71. I want to know why residents are paying 90 cents more per thousand to live in this town than businesses do. I think that's completely and totally unfair. We should have one rate that everybody pays, and yes, I agree with the residential exemption because there's a lot of people in town that need it. But I think the whole tax rate should change. The other thing is, you're not taking into account that if you're in the Hyannis Business Improvement District, you're paying an extra $3 per thousand, so I'm actually paying $16 per thousand to own a business in Hyannis, and if you're wondering why people don't want to do business in Hyannis, there's your reason right there. $16 per thousand. This whole tax system is the screwiest thing I've ever seen. Why does a commercial property pay almost $1 less per thousand than a resident does? And businesses are not assessed any higher than they should be. They're actually assessed quite low because the state regulates what a business can pay in their assessed valuation. So that was my question, and that is still my question. The other question I have is that before you approve this deduction, you really need to have a meeting about having everybody pay one rate. And the fact that if you live in Hyannis and you're in the Hyannis Fire District, commercial people are paying $4.29 per thousand, and residential are paying $2.69 per thousand, which is a $1.60 difference. And this whole thing is so messed up that somebody really has to take control of it and fix it, because it's just totally unfair. That's what I wanted to say before.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing? All those in favor of closing the public hearing? And that is unanimous. Any council discussion on this item? I have a second to move the question. All those in favor of moving the question? And that is unanimous. This is item 2019. I'm sorry. There's one up, I'm sorry, one in opposition. Item 2019-052, and this is a roll call vote.
Councilors Biedenbender,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Dagwan,
Yes.
Flores,
Yes.
Rapcorsetti.
Yes.
Hebert,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnepp,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Tinsley,
Yes.
Wallace.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you very much. Councilor Hebert, could you please read item 2019-053 and open the public hearing? It's on page 15.
Yes, Mr. President. This is old business and roll call. Item number 2019-0353, allocation of tax levy fiscal year 2019 tax factor. As read.
Second.
All right, I have a second. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mark Milne, Director of Finance. As this table illustrates, this option gives a community to shift a portion of the tax levy from the residential class to the commercial, industrial, and personal property class of taxpayers. This table illustrates what the shifts would be at 5% increments. You can see the tax rate increases for the commercial, industrial, and personal property tax classes as the shift occurs, and the tax rate for the residential class declines. At about every shift, every $1 saved by a residential taxpayer results in $7 more on average being paid by a commercial, industrial, or personal property taxpayer. Since the implementation of Proposition 2.5, the Town Council has only adopted a factor greater than one year, and that was in fiscal year 2006 at 15%, and then reversed it the following year, and it's been a factor of 1 ever since then. A factor of 1 would result in no taxes being shifted from the residential class to the commercial, industrial, or personal property class. The item before you this evening is drafted as the council adopting a factor of 1 once again, which means there'll be no shifting of the tax levy from the residential class to the commercial, industrial, personal property tax class.
Thank you, Mark. And this is a public hearing, so if any members of the public wish to speak to this item, please come forward.
Yes, I'd like you to consider shifting 90 cents per thousand from the residential class to the commercial class, which means I'm asking you to raise my taxes. So I'll be paying $16.90 per thousand because I think it needs to be fair to everyone. I don't think that commercial rates should be 90 cents less than residential rates. It's unfair to the people that live in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing? I have a second. All those in favor of closing the public hearing? Any abstention? No? Okay. All right, this is item 2019.
Point of information, please, Mr. President. Yes vote, to be clear, just so everyone on the dais means that we continue the factor of 1.
Correct.
Is that correct? Thank you.
This is item 2019 Go ahead. You have a point of information?
Well, I have a question for Mark Milne, if I could. Are we still under, have we moved the question? Yes, we did. Oh, wow.
Did move the question.
I missed that one.
Yep.
I thought we moved to close the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we did close the public hearing.
So we did not move the question?
No, we did not. You're right.
So may I ask? Okay.
Yep, go ahead. My apologies.
Thank you. So if we wanted to increase the factor of 1 to 1.15 to shift it from residential to commercial, can that be done without advertisement? Can it be amended from the floor?
Yes.
Okay. And can you explain to us why the commercial rate is less than the residential?
Yes, the commercial rate is currently less than the residential rate because of the residential exemption. There is no shifting of tax levy from the commercial class to the residential class. What happens with the passage of a residential exemption is a portion of the residential property value becomes exempt from taxation. The residential class is still paying the same amount of taxes. However, it's being shifted amongst the residential class of taxpayers and only them. So we're shifting a portion of the residential levy from one sector of the residential class to another sector of the residential class. The commercial, industrial, and personal property class is not getting the benefit of that shift. So they're not paying less in taxes as a result of the difference in the tax rates. What's happening is higher valued property owners are paying more in taxes than the lower valued property owners just within the residential class. That causes the changes in the tax rates, and that's it. It's not that the commercial property owners are getting a tax break.
So if we did increase the shift to 1.15, then that would bear some more cost to the commercial rate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it would.
Anyone else? All right. Now do I have a motion? Move the question? Okay. Councilor Tinsley, second. All those in favor of moving the question? And that's unanimous. This is item 2019-053, and this is also a roll call vote.
Councilors Cullum,
Yes.
Bagwan,
Yes.
Flores,
Yes.
Rapcorsetti,
Abstain.
Hebert,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Tinsley,
Yes.
Wallace,
Yes.
Bender.
Yes.
So that would be 10 yes and 1 abstention. I'm sorry, 11 yes and 1 abstention.
Thank you. Moving on to, and thank you, Mark. Moving on to new business, Councilor Rapcorsetti, could you please read item 2019-051 and move to a second read?
Thank you. This is new business, item 2019-051, appointments to a board, committee, or commission. This is referring to a second reading on December 20th. Resolved that the town council appoints the following individuals to a multiple member board, committee, or commission. Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historic District Commission. Elizabeth Young from an alternate position to a full member to a term expiring 6/30/2019. Cecilia Carey from Hyannis as an alternate member to a term expiring 6/30/2019. Licensing Authority, David Hirsch, Centerville, as an associate member to a term expiring 6/30/2019. Old Kings Highway Historic District Commission, Elizabeth McCarthy from Barnstable as an alternate member to a term expiring 6/30/2021. And Planning Board, Walter Watson, Marston's Mills, as a regular member to a term expiring 6/30/2019, as read.
Second.
Have a second. This is item 2019-051, appointments to board, committee, commission. All those in favor of moving to a second read on December 20th? And that is unanimous. And please note, Councilor Bender has left the dais. Councilor Schnapp, could you please read item 2019-054?
This is new business, may be acted upon. Item 2018-054, acceptance of fiscal year 2019 Cultural District Grant in the amount of $5,000 from the Massachusetts Cultural Council's Cultural District for the Barnstable Village Cultural District.
All right, I have a second. Do we know who's doing the rationale on this one? Oh.
In the meeting, still on?
19.
Good evening, Mark Ells, Town Manager. This is a reoccurring cultural grant that we've been made eligible for, this and the next item. It's an annual, obviously, it's not guaranteed, but you know, we continue to receive it and we use it toward appropriate expenses within those cultural districts. This particular one, first one was within the Barnstable, second one's within the Hyannis.
Thanks, Mark. Any council discussion on this item? All right, do I have a second? All those in favor of moving the question? That's unanimous. This is item 2019-054. Right. All those in favor of this item? That's unanimous. All right, Councilor, let's see, Councilor, who am I going to pick on now? Councilor Neary.
Thanks.
Could you please read item 2019-055, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is new business that may be acted upon. It's item number 2018-055. It's the acceptance of a fiscal year 2019 cultural district grant in the amount of $5,000 from the Massachusetts Cultural Council's Cultural District Grant Program for Hyannis and High Arts Cultural District, as written.
I have a second. There was a Scribner's error on the text of the item. It's 2019-055. It's correct in the index, but Mark, do you want to just speak quickly on it again?
Again, Mark Ells, Town Manager. Similar to the last one, this is a $5,000 grant from Mass Cultural Council. We had received the designation for the Hyannis High Arts Cultural District. We're eligible for these funds to expend them on eligible expenses associated within the district.
Thank you, Mark. Any council discussion on this item? I have a second. All those in favor of moving the question? And that is unanimous. This is item 219-055. All those in favor of this item? And that is unanimous. All right, Councilor Wallace, could you please read item 2019-056 and move to a second read on December 20th, please?
New business, move to a second read, item number 2019-056, amend to the Administrative Code to designate members of the Infrastructure and Energy Commission as special municipal employees, and to remove from the existing special municipal employee designation curtain multiple member bodies that no longer exist, as written.
I have a second. All those in favor of moving item 2019-056 to a second read on December 20th, 2018? That is, I believe it. Anyone in opposition? Okay. Okay, all right. So that's unanimous. Thank you. Councilor Tinsley, could you please read item 2019-057 on page 23, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move item number 2019-057 to a second read on December 20th, 2018. Resolve on exemption for Cheryl Powell, Chair of the Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historic District Commission, of an interest under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 268A, subsection 19, the Conflict of Interest Law, as written.
I have a second. I'd like to invite the town attorney up.
That may be acted upon, Ms. Powell is a Ruth Weil, town attorney for the record, greetings of the season, good to see everybody. Now that you can see me. Ms. Powell is the chair and a member of the Hyannis Main Street Historic Waterfront District. She is also a holder of Verizon stock. There are 2 applications pending before the commission involving Verizon of New England. Ms. Powell, in an abundance of caution, contacted the State Ethics Commission to see if there was a conflict. She was told that under 268A, Section 19, that there was enough of a financial interest to warrant either a recusal or seeking an exemption from the town council. I believe that in Ms. Powell's recitation, she refers to the requirements under state law that the interest is so insubstantial not to affect the integrity of her decision-making power. Ultimately, this is a town council decision. The Ethics Commission does not weigh in. They leave it to the local appointing authority to decide whether or not to grant the exemption or not.
Thank you, Ruth. Any council questions or discussion on this? Councilor Rapcorsetti?
Well, I'm very familiar with Ms. Powell, and I think her bringing this to the council is probably a prudent thing to do, and I certainly would seek that we act on exempting her and allowing her to proceed as chair on this item.
Anyone else? Counselor Dagwan?
Yes, I think she's very knowledgeable, and I think she was did her due diligence. She studied everything. She got a hold of the ethics committee herself and looked into this, so I would be in favor of supporting her as well.
Any other counselors?
Move the question.
All those in favor of moving the question? That is unanimous. This is item 2019-057. All those in favor of this item? And that's unanimous. Counselor Biedenbender, could you please read item 2019-058 and refer to a public hearing on December 20th, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is new business referring to public hearing 12/20/2018. This is item number 2019-058, appropriation and loan order in the amount of $850,000 for the Hyannis West Elementary School Roof Truss System as written.
I have a second. All those in favor of referring item 2019-058 to a public hearing on December 20th, 2018? And that is unanimous. Councilor Cullum, could you please read item 2019-059 and refer to a public hearing on December 20th, 2018, please?
Yes, I'd like to open and refer to a public hearing on 12/20/2018, item number 2018-059, appropriation and loan order in the amount of $571,000 for the Mary Dunn Well Number 4 reactivation project as written.
This is item 2019-059. All those in favor of referring this item to a public hearing on December 20th, 2018? And that is unanimous. All right, so we've gotten through what we could here on the agenda. The planning board is still deliberating. Probably gonna have to take a little recess a little bit to see where they're at, but maybe before we do that, could we do the nomination of officers? For president and vice president. I'll turn it over to the clerk, and then we'll probably take a quick recess and see where the planning board's at. Oh, looks like they might be done. No. Go ahead.
Good evening, counselors. It's that time of year again. So right now, I'll be accepting nominations from the floor for the office of president and vice president. Yes.
I'd like to nominate for president, Vice President James Crocker.
Second.
Who seconded it? Oh, thank you. All right, are there any more for president? Okay. So now we're looking for nominations for vice president. Yes, Jessica.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'd like to nominate Councilor John Flores for Vice President of the Council.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any more nominations? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'd like to nominate Councilor Deborah Dagwan for Vice President.
Is there a second? Thank you. Are there any more? All right, I'm going to consider then the nominations for president and vice president closed. At the next meeting on the 20th, we'll have time for people to give a little speech, tell us why you want to be our vice president, and we'll go from there, and we'll have our vote on the 20th. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And let's take a brief recess. I want to check in, see where the planning board's at. So we stand in recess at the moment. All right, councilors, please take your seats. Our planning board has joined us after their deliberation. Madam Chair, would you like to give us your recommendations on the two items, please?
I would, thank you, Council President. For the first one, which is 2019-032, which is amend Article 5, Chapter 240, Section 25 of the zoning ordinance to revise regulations for the Highway Business District. We've also provided this as a written document as well. On December 6, 2018, the Planning Board held a duly processed and noticed joint hearing on the above referenced proposed zoning amendment related to the Highway Business District in the town of Barnstable. After the close of the public hearing, a motion was duly made and seconded to recommend the adoption of the zoning amendments 2019-032, amending Chapter 240, Section 25 of the zoning ordinance to revise regulations for the Highway Business Districts as the following amendments, and I'll go through each one of these as well. Under Section 1 of 2019-032, amending Chapter 240, Section 25, we would like to strike the following items under B, which is principal permitted use. Number 7, which is contractor service establishments, and number 25, which is self-storage facilities. The next amendment is amend following item under B, principal permitted use. Number 24, under retail and wholesale, we'd like to remove wholesale. The next is the amend the second footnote under B, which is principal permitted use, for changing the 10-foot landscape setback from the residential property lines to 20 feet. In the document, it actually reinstates that statement with regards to changing it from 10 feet to 20 feet. The next amendment is on the third footnote under B, principal permitted use, by adding the word dumpster. So parking areas for commercial vehicles, any exterior areas used for loading and storage, and dumpsters shall be screened from view from the public way. The next item is strike the following items under C, which is conditional uses. Number 1, auto service and repair shops. Number 2, building, sale, rental, storage, and repair of boats. Number 4, contractor yards. And number 9, warehouse or distribution. The next item is amend the first footnote under C, conditional use, by changing the 10-foot landscape setback from all residential properties to 20 feet. The next item is amend the second footnote under C, conditional uses, by adding dumpsters. The next item is amend letter D, bulk regulations, to changing the minimum lot area, which was, I believe it was 15, to a half-acre size lot to 21,780 square feet, and changing the minimum side yard setback to 20 feet. The next item is amend the second footnote under B, bulk regulations, by changing a minimum caliper of 3 inches to a minimum caliper of 6 inches. Next item is strike under Chapter 240-25E, number 1, applicability, the second, third sentences, and fourth sentences, and substitute in place the following. Design and performance standards shall apply to expansions and modifications and new development as defined herein. Design and performance standards shall not apply to changes to use of tenancy changes in an existing building or expansions or modifications below the thresholds defined in subsection A of this paragraph. Subsection A reads, expansions or modifications. A project shall be considered an expansion or modification where any alteration to an existing building are proposed that exceed the following thresholds, but do not meet the designation of new development as described in subsection B below. Part 1 of subsection B, an expansion of the footprint of the building by more than 20%. Subsection B2, more than 50% of the exterior walls or 50% of the roof area are completely removed or replaced. Footnote 1, alterations to existing structures to accommodate second or third floor additions shall not be considered for the purposes of calculating this subsection. Also under that footnote is changes to the interior of a structure or the addition of accessory equipment shall not be considered when determining what constitutes an expansion or modification. New development, a project shall be considered new development where a building for a principal use is proposed for construction that did not previously exist within the HB. New development may include new construction or demolition and reconstruction. Amendment 240-25E, Building Design Standards, by adding corrugated metal as E1E and striking 240-25E2E2, which was prohibiting building materials permitted corrugating metal as detailed elements. Amend items 5A, screening, under E, district-wide design and performance standards to include dumpsters. And finally, amend F, definition to strike definitions for auto service and repair shops, contractor services, establishment, contractor yards, and self-storage facilities. The vote was 4 in favor, 0 in opposition, and 0 in abstention. The motion was carried. That was our first item. We have a second item also.
This is the report of the Barnstable Planning Board to Town Council on agenda item 2019-042, amending Chapter 240, Article 3 of the zoning ordinance to expand the Highway Business District. On December 6, 2018, the Planning Board held a duly posted and noticed joint public hearing on the above referenced proposed zoning amendment related to the Highway Business District in the town of Barnstable, item 2019-042. A motion was duly made and seconded to provide a negative recommendation to the proposal to expand the Highway Business District and to further study the Highway Business District boundaries as part of a local comprehensive plan update. The vote was 4 in favor, 0 opposition, 0 in abstention. The motion carried.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this concludes your recommendations on these two items.
It does. Thank
Okay.
you, Council President.
I want to thank you for your work and deliberation on these, and we will certainly take these under advisement, during our deliberation. You're obviously welcome to stay, but now would be the time to adjourn your meeting.
Great, thank you. I'd like a motion to close.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, so we have the Planning Board recommendations on the two items before us. On item 2019-042, based on the recommendation, I'd entertain a motion that we continue this item perhaps to second meeting in January, which I think is the 17th. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to move agenda items 2019-032.
But just this, just. Yeah,
Just 42. Thank you. 42 to a meeting held January 17th, 2019. Thank you.
Is there a second for that motion? Any council discussion? All right. All those in favor of continuing item 2019-042 to a January 17th, 2019 meeting? Any opposed? One in opposition. All right, so we'll go back to item 2019-032. We have the recommendations from the Planning Board, which were just read into the record. So I'd like to hear the wishes of the council and see if what type of discussion we have among the councilors on this item. Anyone? Councilor Biedenbender?
So just to be clear, what we're doing at this point is just open discussion on the, we're not putting forth any motions at this moment. This is just to discuss the item. Okay.
You can.
Thank you. So in part, I want to say a few things to address the audience for those folks that came to speak, and thank you very much. I know that a lot of this is very unfamiliar territory for you, and there's a lot of information to digest. But we do appreciate your comments and your concerns regarding how it will affect you and your neighborhood. The thinking behind this, in part, was that, yes, someone had pointed out that you can do a lot of these things through special permits, but it does become incredibly onerous for business people to be able to operate their business when they're trying to get tenants and what have you. So in part, we were trying to put some consistency and make it easier for people to do business in the town. That said, I myself had a lot of concerns about some of these amendments. I'm glad that we're putting the map off, so I won't talk about that. I'll save those comments till the January meeting. But I had a lot of, I had some concerns regarding the text changes to this amendment, and I appreciate the recommendations of the planning board. I had a pack of motions that I was going to make regarding this proposed amendment, and the planning board covered about 16 of them. I have, some of the uses I think are far more appropriate for an industrial area such as self-storage facilities. I think that it is appropriate, assuming that the map is staying the same. If you look at that HB district in Centerville and that Route 28 section, I think some of the things that we're trying to do with the text changes here make sense, sort of increasing lot size. But then there are some things that concern me, such as setbacks, and those were covered by the planning board, which is great. We want to make sure that when we're abutting residentially zoned areas, that we're not infringing on those property owners. So I also had I have some of my motions, some covered ordered by planning board, and then I have a couple others here that I will make in a moment. Are spurred in part for my concerns regarding traffic, just as you. It is a tight corridor down there. I live down the street. I know how bad the traffic is. So we have to be very careful about the unintended consequences of what we're doing when we're trying to also do right by our business owners. So with that said, I only have three motions to make. In addition, do you want me to make them now or no? Wait. Okay.
Yeah, you have to. You
Okay,
gotta
that's fine.
wait a turn. And just to clarify, the recommendations from the planning board do not automatically amend anything.
I know that.
Okay.
Yes, I know
Just
that.
being clear for everyone.
Right, so
Just a recommendation.
Yep,
All right.
absolutely.
Councilor Cullum?
Yes, I wanted to thank everybody for coming out again and speaking. We heard a lot today and tonight, a lot of concerns, and I appreciate all of them and I understand all of them. And I particularly want to thank Felicia Penn, who has made some really strong points and usually does, but in this particular case, I think I agree on every one of them. And I guess we've heard one side only of the argument, and I would like to hear, when we get to the map, what the impetus was in the very beginning for this. Because I don't really understand, other than the fact that we need relief in that one strip, why we're expanding. And I guess it's a leading question or rhetorical, I should say, because I know it has to do with the pipes in the ground, and I know it has to do with attracting developers with zoning. But I'd like to hear it. Yeah, I know, I will. I want to address public comment because a lot of people came in and spoke to it. So those are the things that I just feel like we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater because we haven't heard everything yet. There was a comment tonight that, how are we to know? How are we to know? Well, I just want to say, and I mean this in the most sensitive way possible, that this town council is moving on zoning. If you haven't noticed it, there's zoning committees, there's zoning almost every meeting, there's zoning. So keep your ear to the ground because you're the ultimate boss. And, we move and we move and we move. And unless we hear from you, we don't know. And we're moving this way to create tax dollars to make Barnstable a better place to live, and things get lost in the shuffle. And it's incumbent upon you to be informed about what's happening in your neighborhood. So I'm thankful that you came tonight, and I'm thankful that you knew about it, and I'm thankful that you got the abutters notice and all of that. But keep your ear to the ground, because things are changing in Barnstable. We're modernizing, we're working in a way that hopefully will be better for everybody. But I just wanted to say that, because I think it's really important that you tell your neighbors, pay attention, because things are changing, okay? And I appreciate the planning board and all of their efforts. I think that they were really solid amendments, and I'm looking forward to hearing what other counselors have to say.
Any other counselors? Counselor Hebert?
Thank you, Mr. President. So, in regards to personal service establishments, it does include barber shops. So I want to be clear on that, because more, but we still have to worry about the sewerage. So something has to be done appropriate for there. I do want to thank everybody's input. The special permit is very, very important to me, as former Councilor Cherigotis pointed out, and I think that's very valid. I think all the points that were made tonight, I like those changes. I'm glad we're not voting on the map, because I've already said that I would vote no, out of respect for the public that has taken the time to respond to us. And I don't think we listen enough to the public. So I'm glad we're not voting on that tonight. And thank you very much for all your participation and input.
Counselor Neary?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I'd just like to try to recap, especially for the folks that raised some concerns about what's going to happen with your property. I think there's a misconception that has come about where when you hear zoning and you hear business, you hear these words together. I've kind of made myself clear. I dislike the word highway business. I would just kind of rather have it called highway zoning. The tenets of owning property, okay, you can own the property, you can covet it, you can improve it, you can enjoy it, you can keep people off it. That's your right. Those rights are part of real estate law. You own that property. And Susan, sweet, the letter that you get, I really appreciate that getting to us. It's heartfelt, and we understand it. Nobody's going to come in and take your property. Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that. Really, this is about, in my opinion, it's about property ownership, and it's about, you know, my dad, I don't know if anyone had ever seen one, but years ago they used to have a mat, you know, the mat, you put a floor mat or a mat in front of your house, and his said, "Go away." You know, he had a couple of snippets that he used to have. His was "Go away." Nice dad, it's kind of cute. But he had a couple of other sayings he used to come up with. He used to say, change is feared worse than death, okay? And sometimes fear, like, paralyzes us. When we embarked on this whole process, it was eye-opening, to say the least. And I will say that the people that participated in this, literally you click lot by lot along these corridors, and you start to ask yourself the question, well, then there are only two uses: office and a bank without a drive-through. Yet, if you drive down West Main and you drive through all these areas, I wouldn't say that those are the only two uses on those properties, okay? But that's the way the zoning went. So it did require a potential tenant to go in, or someone who was going to purchase a property to go through these kind of hoops. I understand the reason for it. Probably back in, well, Marcel can tell us, it was in the 70s when they changed this. I think there was a great fear for Cape becoming not the Cape, and someone mentioned it, you know, pave paradise and put up a parking lot. And believe me, that's the last thing that anybody on this committee envisions. Believe me. So in the process of all this, we sit there and we actually ask ourselves a question. If I were an abutter, if I was in a residence, if I was a business currently, and we kind of worked our way down the list, would I oppose an art gallery? I don't think so. These are all personal responses. The point being is that this is how the list was developed. The question wasn't so much what should we have, but why wouldn't we in certain instances? Why wouldn't we want to have a yoga studio? Now, another thing my father used to tell me is he would say the old line, you know, I'm here from the government and I'm your friend. I'm here to help you, you know. Many small business people that find themselves in front of the words, well, you got to go down to town hall and apply for a permit and get a special consideration. It's frightful. You're not aware of the process, and I think the structure of this look at zoning was to try to realize that, hey, maybe we might want to have a single-family dwelling on a property. But just because I'm changing use, I've got to go through a zoning process to do that. I've got to go to the ZBA. Or maybe I'm talking to the Sweets, maybe you had a nephew or someone that wanted to put a house on your property. I don't think it's really necessary that you would have to go through a process to put a house on your property, should you want to do that. So we look at it, we call it business, but actually it's the opportunity of a change of use in these zones. And I think as you work your way down the list, again, you need to ask yourself the question, why not? Is this bad? You know, would a Chatham Orpheum Theater on someplace on 132 that had the right size, would that not be kind of neat? Which leads to the question of traffic. I get to drive Yarmouth Road every day. I get to drive Route 28 where I live in Centerville. It's brutal. But then again, I ask myself the question, why are all these people driving by these places? Is there no business that they're interested in stopping into? These are the questions that you ask. And frankly, I'm blessed. I've got 4 grandchildren. I've got 1 on the way. Unfortunately or fortunately, that could produce 4 to 5 new drivers, God willing, in a few years. So there's going to be more cars. And I think until the point where we have driverless automobiles and ride sharing, traffic is not going to get better before, for a bit. So I guess it's talking about controlling the things that we can control, and all we're trying to do is to free up resources for the town. These zoning board hearings, the delays. If they're going to rubber stamp it, why do we have to go through these steps? Now, with that said, you could have a specific business that wants to go into a place that would be approved, but as if I could use, let's use the barber shop. If it was a hair salon and it was producing chemicals, all those still have to go before Board of Health. So there are other entities that would have to approve those changes. So I guess again, to me, this is more about the right of a property owner to be able to have a little bit of say in terms of what can be done with his business. And then on an additional note, and there was this talk about the storage facility. The way that the zoning ordinance has been derived at is, it is based on the size of the available lot. So if you, again, kind of click your way down, go to the town website and click your way down those properties. So when you think warehouse, you think contractor yard, or you think storage facility, there really wouldn't be even any place that you could put it on there without some type of accumulating lots, okay? So, with that said, this, again, in my opinion, is actually a benefit for the property owner. Not only that, the property owners in the town of Barnstable, all property owners, are that's the entity that pays for all the services. You're footing the freight for everything that happens in town. And again, my opinion is I think that you should have more control over what happens on your property. And thank you for coming, and thank you for voicing your concerns.
Thank you, Councilor Neary. And you did touch on traffic, and I think it's important just to mention that Route 132 and Route 28 are obviously state roads, so we have no say on curb cuts or anything along those corridors. There's a long process. You have to go through the state to get approval for curb cuts. There's actually some vacant parcels that have lost their curb cuts, so they're going to have to start from the beginning. The state really now is working on if there's parcels that can combine into one curb cut. They're trying to eliminate curb cuts on state roads. So there is a long process that deals with traffic studies, curb cuts. So it's not as if you just go in there and redevelop a parcel and there's no thought to traffic or curb cuts. There's a long process you go with the state to design those curb cuts correctly with traffic in mind, and studies are done. So I just want to alleviate some of the fears on Route 28, Route 132. Those are state roads, and there's a state process to get approval on those items. Councilor Schnapp?
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to add my thanks to the members in the audience who have spoken tonight and in the previous meeting about your concerns, and also for, well, the planning board's not here, but for their thoughtful review of the zoning ordinance as it's currently drafted. I agree with most of the amendments in their entirety that they've presented. But I wanted to speak to one other process that we have in town to kind of give you some assurance that even if we move a number of these uses to by right, that there are review processes in place that would prevent, you know, egregious structures being created. And it's called the site plan review. And that's a staff function, but almost every commercial change in use would go through this site plan review, and it's quite extensive in terms of looking at the needs for parking and, again, the Board of Health and fire if necessary. So just to assure everyone in the audience that there is a very thoughtful process to look at this, and that if we approve the zoning changes that are now currently under a special permit process, that there's still a great way for these things to be considered. But I agree with Councilor Neary in the sense that as part of the Zoning and Regulatory Committee, we looked at a lot of these uses, and it was a kind of a common sense, you know, why wouldn't we allow a change in use from this to that? Where I had some concerns, and again, they're addressed in the amendment provided by the Planning Board, was some of the design features, you know, wanting to make sure if there is significant changes to a use on a property, that we make sure we take that chance to enhance the aesthetics and the way that it is oriented to the rest of the, you know, the district. You know, this is an opportunity to maybe increase, you know, the beauty, I think, on West Main Street and 28 and even 132. So that's how I will be approaching the amendments that we're considering in our discussion tonight.
Any other councilors? Councilor Dagwan?
Yes, I'll be brief. I just want to say, as a member of the committee, which was the committee to review zoning and permitting regulations, and that was our initial goal, was to look at the zoning regulations and how we could slimline or adjust the permitting process for a lot of the businesses that came in. And I have to say that at each of our meetings, and we've been meeting for months now, there was always a public comment section for people to come in and hear what we were talking about and share their concerns. We did at the beginning have some existing businesses who came in and told us, you know, what their concerns were about. I would have loved to have heard a little bit more from the residents. It seems like we had more residents tonight, but I also feel that maybe we need to find a better way to help people understand the process, and you know, when we're doing these kind of things. I noticed tonight that the planning board went next door, and some of the ladies were sitting here, and they didn't know they could go next door. They didn't know they could pick up the paper, the map that was on the table. I think we need to find some better ways to communicate that kind of information to you. But I also want to say that the planning board and the committee had two good chairs that I feel did a very good job of looking at all the lots. And Elizabeth, our Director of Planning and Development, and spent a lot of time with us. She's probably sick of all of us at this point, going through this over and over again. We looked at some 623 lots and see which ones were non-conforming lots that could not be developed. It was a whole lot to this. And I think to come in tonight and get the feedback that we did from various members of the community. We've had town councilors, ex-town councilors that were here tonight that knew a lot of history. You have people who have lived in the town here a long time come and give us history, and that helps a lot to hear that kind of thing. So for me, I appreciate that kind of feedback. And what I heard tonight, that we need to look more comprehensively at wastewater, zoning, infrastructure, and of course traffic, which we don't have, as you said, on certain highways, it's state highways, we don't have any control over that. That's the state. But we can, within these villages and malls and the highway business shopping center corridor zones, reconfigure things within those to try to make the traffic move a little smoother. And we are concerned about safety of the residents. So I just think we need to stay positive. Be glad that you have committees that are looking into these kinds of things. Thankful for the talented people that we have in our town. And we have some very talented people that legal, and as I said, Elizabeth, she's just fantastic with what she does with all of us. And let's just come together and see if, what we can do to make it work for all of us. Thank you.
Councilor Rep Corsetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to echo my fellow councilors, thanking everyone for their comments and letters and speaking at public hearing. And I was on the subcommittee. One of the things I circled was under the A, purpose, the appropriate protection for adjacent residential land uses and Barnstable's unique character and exceptional quality of life. For me, and I added the words appropriate protection of water quality, and I know the Board of Health regulation isn't before us, but I think that it's directly tied, lifting the estuary overlay to where this HB is included in that overlay district. So that has some concerns to me. The other thing I want to clarify, Councilor Schnepp mentioned under principal permitted uses, they still have to go before site plan review. I don't believe site plan review is a public hearing. It is simply at the town hall, and it has the the health or the building commissioner there, and oftentimes the fire chief and police chief and heads of boards, but it does not require a public hearing. So that's something that's of concern. I appreciate the planning board's very thoughtful and comprehensive amendments, and I'm looking forward to someone making those amendments, recommending those for adoption by the council with regards to excluding some of the permitted uses. So yes, we did meet for many months, and very few people attended those meetings. All those meetings were public meetings. They were notified on the town's website. So we haven't done this in the dark. We have done this in the public, and all those meetings were conducted prior to our council meetings at 6 p.m. Sometimes I felt a little rushed in those meetings. We had a time constraint of an hour, But I think we got a lot of discussion, good discussion out on the table. And, you know, we're looking at some revisions to the highway business, which is existing, and that's the item before us. We're not looking at expansion on this item, 032. And I think I already said that the planning board's amendments, I think, should be heeded. I think that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Hebert?
Thank you, Mr. President. A point of clarification, if Councilor Representative said that there's something about lifting the regulations, that's not included in this. Is that correct? No. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Bienbender?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make one other comment before it gets to the point where I make a couple of motions, just to give some background. One of the things that does concern me about changes to the HB is that you have it on Route 132 and you have it on 28, and those two areas are very different. Route 132 is, you know, I mean, you all know it. It is not similar to Route 28 as it goes through Katuitt, through the village of Centerville, you know, that early part of Hyannis. And so some of the things that I will be making a motion on reflect that, that, you know, yes, it works in the HB and it should be allowed in the HB, but in this area, not that area, because they are two very different spots in the town. Thanks.
Councilor Levesque?
I also, I was really looking forward to this moment. At a lot of times during the last two meetings, I hear people's pleas of, please listen to me, please listen to me. And in no point in time were we not listening. I think I speak for all the counselors that, you know, I think, you know, not to sound cliche, but I think there's a failure to communicate. And so, you know, and again, that's not a criticism on anybody, but here we are. And so when this subject was brought up, and again, as Paul, Councilor Neary rather, mentioned, this was a process to try to give people, as Mrs. Sweet, as Ms. Hand and Ms. Riley, you have certain inalienable rights of your property. You have certain expectations, and no one's going to force you to do anything to your property. And what we're trying to do here is give people more rights for their property because they own their property and there's certain things that maybe they should be able to do. I was on the Zoning Board of Appeals for 3 years, and I saw people come before the zoning board in certain instances, and it's very serviceable, and it's very much needed and as the planning board. And again, I appreciate all their work and hard work, and they were there in those meetings. There was transparency in those meetings. I mean, you could go, we were free to speak our minds. There were things that I fought over that I thought, I don't know about that, as someone who's been on the zoning board. But there are certain times where there's certain things that took place when someone was made to jump through certain hoops, as Mr. Braincroft, for example, and that were just, quite honestly, unnecessary. And there would be rumblings about the zoning board, like, wow, you know, he had to pay a lawyer. I mean, we're talking thousands of dollars. You know, I understand the planning board's point of view, but there are certain things that we really need to consider as far as the property owner and what they're trying to do. I go up and down West Main Street, and a lot of those property owners are people that live in this town just like me and you. So are we saying to them, you've saved $50,000, and I know you really want to do a development, improvement on your property, but you're going to have to spend $30,000 of that dollars on an architect, on a lawyer, on a, you know, that type of thing. This is what my mindset is, because I'm, you know, the people that came before the zoning board and had no problem, you know, were wealthy. Those were the people that had no problem coming to in beautiful trees and the 6-inch and, you know, the standard, the landscaping standard, I called a very large landscaper here on Cape Cod, very respected, and he said 3 inches is the standard. And if you ask people to do 6 inches as a standard, then you're going to be extensively increasing the cost. Never mind the transportation, the labor it's going to cost to plant those trees. These are the things that we need to consider because, again, we're talking on certain parts. Now, granted, I understand, and you know what? Councilor Biedenbender is correct. These are 2 different areas. But can we find an area in the middle where we can meet that's going to help people? You know, a 3-inch tree is someday soon is going to be a 6-inch tree. Those types of things. And again, certain standards, you know, when sometimes I think, you know, our mindset cannot be when someone comes before us, what can we get out of them? It needs to be how can we help them see their dream come true? How can we help them facilitate what they want to see done with their property? And instead of being a roadblock, we just had this beautiful thing that happened on the Kmart Shopping Plaza, Live, Love, Local, this past weekend. I don't know if anybody got a chance to go. I actually didn't get a chance to go. But I heard so many great things about that, and that used to be in Dennis. And now it's here in Barnstable, and I like that we took something from Dennis and put it here in Barnstable. And so but I talked to 3 different vendors, and they said, well, when we had it in Dennis 2 years ago, the permitting process was so much easier, and we weren't sure we were going to be able to make this happen in Barnstable. Well, 2 years ago, the building commissioner in Dennis was Brian Florence. Brian Florence is our building commissioner. So is that true? Is that a true statement? I don't believe that's a true statement. Now, maybe there's a staff member. Who knows? I don't know. Again, I'm not criticizing anybody. But there's a narrative out there that Barnstable is a difficult place to pull a permit and difficult place to build and improve. And I understand we have concerns. I am concerned about the water just as much as anybody else. However, are there possibilities? Are there ways? This is not a rural community. I grew up in Freetown, Massachusetts, the sticks. That's a rural community. And there was no traffic, and I miss those days at times. But I chose to live here in Cape Cod, and in the summertime, it gets busy. And if I don't want to deal with traffic, I don't travel to certain areas. And Route 28, Route 132, and Councilor Neary made a great point that to slow traffic down, we need to, in a way, increase reasons to stop. And if we leave these places we leave these places undeveloped and they become blight properties, then it's going to be even more of a highway. One last thing. I had the honor to be on the ZBA for a great project and to speak about the Cape Cod 5 development that's taking place in 132. And there was a lot of work put into that, and obviously kudos to Cape Cod 5 for really doing it right. There wasn't much we had to ask for them. They're paying for a pump station for us to connect our sewer to so that we can sewer all around and save an estuary, Shallow Pond, up Old Strawberry Hill Road, and all the businesses across the street. And that pump station was paid for by Cape Cod 5. Not to say that we want to unduly put pressure on people to sewer our town, to develop here or whatever, but it's not a hard ask to do that when they have a certain footprint that they're going to be taking over. Another example is the new building that was mentioned, actually, which is right on the edge of the HB district currently on 28, 1030 Falmouth Road. That building, the owner of that building, at their own expense, hooked up into the sewer that's coming down 28. And so there's a property that was, who knows what was going to happen, right? But now that water, that wastewater is going into this. So that was the mindset, at least for me, that can we create more opportunities like that where it's a win-win situation? So when we're looking at these type of things, we're not trying to make a parking lot. We're trying to look forward, avoid blighted properties, I mean, if you go down West Main Street, please tell me your 6 favorite landscape properties. Right? So it is ripe for redevelopment. Are we going to, we need to put restrictions, but at the same time, if we lighten the grip, so to speak, are we going to be able to be more welcoming to the people who want to redevelop there? So that's the intent behind what we were trying to do. It wasn't to, and again, and at the same time, obviously, have growth in the town. Okay, our finance director, Mark Milne, talks about we need certain amount of growth to even sustain equally, to remain on the same level of the expenses and the growth that we have here in the town. Now, again, I'm not just saying pro-business, but I'm saying we need to work harder to find a solution, but there's going to have to be compromises on both sides, I think. And we need to be willing to listen to one another. Thank you.
Any other counselors? Anyone? Counselor Tinsley?
All right, there's been a lot said about it back and forth. Just like everyone else, thank you for coming out. I think by coming out, you belay the point when people say my voice doesn't count, my vote doesn't count, because it does. We have heard you. In my 11 years sitting up here, I have never seen this many amendments to a single item. So personally, if it be the will of the council to move all these towards it, I think that would be a great idea, but then I would then move a motion to postpone the vote until the next meeting. I have never seen 3 pages of amendments before, not once. And I would like to, you know, I'm sitting here measuring out the tree thing. He just talked about the difference between 3 and 6 is substantial. The money is substantial. The bulk lot, we changed that by almost 7,000 square feet. That is not a small amendment. That's pretty substantial as well. I would like time to, as I'm sitting here trying to read it, putting them together, if we move all of these amendments, I would then like time to sit down with this item once again, reading it straight through. If we can't do that, that's fine. I'm only one vote. But if I can't have the time to do that as one concise piece of legislation, I'll have to vote no. So I make a motion to accept the amendments proposed.
Councilor Tinsley, you can't make a motion to amend anything after speaking. You can make a motion to continue this item.
I make a motion to continue this item.
All right, we have a second. Any council discussion on continuing this item? Councilor Cullum?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been up here almost 8 years, and I feel the same way, that this is it's a huge pill to swallow. And I feel pressure to get it done, and I understand that people have come out twice to do it, but I'm going to support that that motion, because there's a lot to digest here, and I think that I don't think there's a fire anywhere. I think we can take some time and look it over and do it right, because I had no idea about the tree thing either, to be completely honest. And you don't want to put an onerous burden on people. So, thank you.
Councilor Bienbender?
So a question, suggestion, is it possible for ease of discussion and clarity on all the items, that when we move to vote on this, can we break it down per amendment so that we're not doing the whole bulk thing at once? Because, you know, there may be a lot of things you agree with, but maybe there's one thing you don't, right? So is there a way to?
Yeah, to be clear again, this is just a recommendation. These are not amendments that the planning board has made or given to us. It's our recommendation. And we should go through each particular thing that we want to amend, not in a bulk amendment. So we have Councilor Rapcorsetti.
Mr. President, I'm not in favor of continuing the item just now. I'd like to have some opportunity to discuss possible amendments and then continue the item. That's how I feel about it. I think we're here, we've got the planning board's suggested amendments, and I think maybe Councilor Bienbender had talked about putting forth amendments, maybe now is the time to discuss amendments, and then, if we need to continue it.
Well, we have a motion to continue the item that was seconded on the floor. It's not possible to do something halfway and then just continue it halfway through your process. We're either going to continue the item and take it up at a later meeting, or we're going to go through amendments now, but we're not going to do 50% of the discussion and then just decide we've had enough for tonight and continue the item. That's not how we're going to do the business.
Point of information, can Counselor Tinsley withdraw his motion, and we could move forward with amendments and then continue? No?
I think we need to either decide what we're going to do. We're going to continue it, or we're going to go through the amendments and have a vote. But the item is still on the floor to continue this item. He can amend his motion to put a date on it if you want to go to a date certain in an upcoming council meeting, if you want to clarify that.
My intention was to pick it up again at our next meeting on the 20th.
Okay. So that's been seconded. Is there any discussion on that amendment, proposed motion? The 20th is our next meeting, December 20th. So is there any discussion on Councilor Tinsley's motion to continue this item to December 20th? I think your purpose, Councilor Tinsley, was to have more time to digest the planning board's pages. So there's no more discussion on it, so Councilor, we're discussing his motion to continue the item to December 20th. You, Mike?
So that if we voted right now to say no to the continuance, could we have the discussion on the points that we want to amend and then have another motion to bring it up at another time?
I don't think you want to get halfway through this and then just continue it halfway through the discussion. I think his point of his motion was to digest the material that we've got tonight and come back in its entirety, to have a discussion in its entirety, and then to vote. Councilor Levesque?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would concur with Councilor Tinsley on this. I think, at least for myself, I need to go through these items. I've tried to, I'm sure like all of us, tried to educate myself about the certain points, but there's really no way to predict exactly what the planning board was going to have to say. So I'd like to really investigate what the ramifications of even, yeah, I understand that we don't necessarily have to, put every one of these amendments into place, but at the same time, what the ramifications of these things would be. And also, again, what the long-term effect would be on the plan as it stands, and I would like more time.
Councilor Flores?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'll echo the comments of my fellow councilors in terms of, first of all, thanking the subcommittee of the town council that put all of this together. A lot of good work, a lot of hard work. Secondly, of course, the public coming to share their opinions and their ideas, and more importantly, their concerns. I'm going to agree with Councilor Tinsley. I think this is a very serious vote that we're all going to take, whether it be tonight or whether it be a month from now or at the next meeting scheduled for December 20th. And I think we need time to digest, to be sure that what it is that we're going to accept from the planning board, what it is that we're going to accept from other councilors that might be wanting to make some amendments. And I know for myself, I have a few that I want to amend. I agree with most of the things that the planning board suggested, but not everything. And I think it's in everyone's best interest, not only the council, but more importantly, the public in general, for us to really take some time to study this. This has a long-lasting effect and impact on a lot of different decisions that will happen down the future, and it's not something that should be rushed. It's not something that should be done willy-nilly. We should take our time and have very serious debate, very serious discussion to be sure that what it is that we're doing is not only in the best interest of the town, but really balances, if you will, the concerns of the residents along that corridor that we've been discussing. So I will support a continuation.
Any other council?
I just have a question. Will The recommendations that the planning board made be available to the public. Will this be posted anywhere? Again, we have, there's opportunity for the public to continue to
Yeah, they are
comment.
public record now. They were read into the record tonight, so they will be available.
Okay,
Mhm.
great.
And you have your copy for your homework. Any other counselors? All right, so we have the motion on the floor to continue this item to December 20th. Is there? We had a second, but is there a motion to move the question? I have a second. Okay, all those in favor of moving the question? And that is unanimous. So this is item 2019-032. All those in favor of continuing this item to December 20th, 2018? And that is unanimous. And that ends the orders of the day. And our next meeting is December 20th, 2018. Do I have a motion to adjourn? All those in favor? Have a good night, everyone.